Okay, seeing at 7 o'clock, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Bellingham Planning Commission, the May 6th, 2021 meeting. Heather, can you please call a roll?
Ali Taishi.
Did you get me? Here. Sorry.
Rose Lathrop.
Here.
Victor Cressetti.
Here.
Jed Ballou.
Here.
Mike Estes.
Here.
And Scott Jones might be joining us in a little bit.
Quick note for the attendees, we're about to jump into public comment. If your hand is raised because you're having a technical issue, please email haven@cob.org. Otherwise, we'll get into public comment in just a second, or right now. So we're going to do public comment on any topic. Tonight's agenda for the Planning Commission is one work session item on mobile home parks, which is the same topic we talked about at our last meeting. So we're going to just open up to public comment on any topic at all. We're going to do one. Since we don't have a public hearing, we don't have any proposal in front of you, we're not going to do separate public comments tonight. So right now is your one shot for the public to give us a piece of your mind. We're going to do 3 minutes on any topic that you're concerned about within planning, housing, etc. So first hand up, or Heather, do you want to call people in that have their hands up?
Sure. Go ahead, Douglas.
You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Hey, so this is Doug from HomesNOW, Not Later. We manage the 2 tiny home communities in Bellingham, the first 2 tiny home communities in Bellingham, Unity Village and Swift Haven. I think that the Planning Commission should recommend that the City Council changes their policy, in the Municipal Code, BMC 20.15.050, Section C. That part pertains to the idea that tiny home communities, the amount of time that they can last. So right now in the Municipal Code, it has a hard limit of 2 years. And Unity Village, it's been in operation for almost 2 years. In August, we will hit that hard limit. It's not about the fact that the sewer treatment plant is needed right now or not, or anything like that. It's just the fact that in the Municipal Code, there's a hard limit on 2 years only. And so it's been recommended, I think, later in this meeting that it's going to be 5 years. But I would say that it should be more circumstantial. Like, why just 2 years or 5 years? Why a hard number? Why not a system where it's like, okay, yeah, we need this land for something else, so your tiny home community has to go. But like, why have it be a hard limit on 5 years if that site is needed, is not needed for anything else after that 5 years? So anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to say that I really think that tiny home communities are of value to our city and our county, and that they help a lot of people get out of homelessness, and that we use sites that are not standard or not suitable for standard development, and that we can really alleviate the problem in a bang for buck fashion with very minimal investment, and that we should just do more of it, more sites, whatever. And it's weird to have an arbitrary time limit on if it's working and there's no other use for that land. Why an arbitrary time limit? Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
And with that, I think we're good at the staff level. I do want to give Director Sepler the opportunity to provide you with some information under the director's report tonight, some upcoming issues that he's going to be bringing before you.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Good evening, commissioners. We're entering a lively time for the Planning Commission. On June 17th, and I'll be speaking to that, I hope to bring before you a number of code revisions, and they are by their nature relatively minor, though they may have great import. And I'd like to hold those public hearings on the 17th, but I'd like to introduce those to you right now. And I think it might be helpful to just frame them. It is challenging to do minor code revisions. And the reason for that is that all of them require notice, 30 days. They require us to do environmental review. Sometimes it's best for us to batch them, and we've done so. The first will be a revision that's to 2015-050C of the code, and that's the tiny homes. I think you heard a commenter during earlier meeting speak to that. Currently, the code permits an approval, it's administrative, from 90 days to up to 2 years. That's the longest time frame we have for any of the temporary encampments for the unsheltered that we offer. And we offer a variety. As you might recall, a number of you were on the commission when we established temporary tent encampments, temporary encampments in buildings, and safe parking. In this, the recommendation that likely will come forward from staff and be brought to public hearing is to extend that for up to a 5-year term to allow for 3 consecutive 1-year renewals. And this would be a request that would have criteria. The criteria would be that an application would have to be made 60 days before expiration. It'd have to show that the tiny home encampment has been operated in strict compliance with all of the requirements of the chapter and the approval. So therefore, it's been a good neighbor. There've been no issues in operation. And that it also, for those that are on city land or receiving city funding, they would have to participate in the homeless management intake system. I want to clarify that system can be modified so it's not a mandatory referral, but they could consider those who have entered into that program. I know that's of concern for the HomesNOW folks, and rightly so. They don't want to feel obligated to accept everyone because they have a unique model. We can certainly work on clarifying that. These renewals will be subject to a type 1 review. They're administrative. The basis for doing this extension is threefold. The first is the costs of establishing tiny home villages is significant. Unlike a tent encampment or safe parking or an encampment in a building, you need to make them weather tight. There's a cost to establishing the units. Typically, you want to do greater improvements for sanitary, cooking, water, and the cost itself merits it. And they're more stable. They're not as transitory in the sense that they can survive climatic change. Secondly, if there are no impacts to the surrounding area and there is a degree of success in getting folks out of these units and into housing, we should allow those units to continue until our housing emergency is gone. And we should support efficacy. I should mention that those who enter into a license agreement or service agreement as part of this revision will set a performance standard for placement on an annual basis into permanent housing. So those that are successful and meet that bar, currently Seattle uses 40% as a good number. And I know HomesNOW is currently exceeding that number of placement annually. That's good measure. If they're getting folks into permanent housing, that's the goal. The third is to respond on point to the concern of why can't these be open-ended? These are temporary emergency uses. If we did not have if we let them go open-ended, then they're permanent. If they're permanent, by law, they must meet all of our building codes. None of our units meet our building codes. None of the sanitary facilities meet our building codes. None of the cooking facilities meet our building codes. So in order to be able to preserve the options of being much more flexible during this emergency, we need to call it temporary. We need to have a limit on its usage. Nothing prevents someone from meeting the code requirements in the International Building Code and establishing a permanent facility, but it would have to meet the IBC codes. So that ordinance would come forward to effect that change, and we would take it to public hearing. You'll hear and consider comment. If you feel it's appropriate as proposed, you'll recommend it. If you feel it merits discussion, you can take it to workshop session, or you could propose changes that day. Or again, there's always the opportunity that if you don't feel it has merit, you could recommend it not be approved to the council.
Any other questions for Mr. Sepler on the proposed code changes that we'll be hearing about more? There's no other hands. Heather, did we have any old or new business tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I don't see anything else on our agenda, so I will move us to adjourn. Thanks, everybody.